In a major breaking story today, we're learning new details of Donald Trump's unprecedented effort to nullify the results of a free and fair election. Just 2 weeks before the vote was certified by Congress, Trump pressured the Department of Justice to lie to the American public, pushing top officials at DOJ to declare that the 2020 election was, quote, corrupt. That's according to records from a December phone call between Trump, the former acting attorney general, Jeffrey Rosen, and his former deputy, Richard Donoghue, who took contemporaneous notes to document that conversation. According to those notes, Donoghue told the president to, quote, understand that the DOJ can't and won't snap its fingers and change the outcome of the election. It doesn't work that way. Trump reportedly responded, quote, I don't expect you to do that. Just say that the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman. In other words, Trump was asking the top law enforcement agency to sacrifice its own credibility to legitimize his election lies. He continued to push his baseless claims despite being told the major allegations are not supported by evidence. In fact, the officials put it quite bluntly, saying, much of the information you're getting is false. For instance, Trump claimed on that call that the error rate in the ballot count in Michigan was 68%. But in reality, according to the Justice Department, it was less than 1/100%. Yet Trump was undeterred, insisting that we have an obligation to tell people that this was an illegal, corrupt election. And this wasn't some idle request. He made clear their jobs were on the line if they refused to do his bidding, telling them that, quote, people want me to replace DOJ leadership. I'm joined now by Elie, justice correspondent for The Nation, and Glenn Kirschner is a former federal prosecutor. Thank you both so much for being with me. Elie, what do you make of those notes and of that conversation?
Yeah, the scariest thing there is that he's saying, what, leave it to me, just declare it to corrupt and leave it to me and the Republican congressman. What does that mean? Like that's saying, leave the gasoline outside, I'll handle the rest, right? Like the level of illegality this man was willing to go to. Now, personally, I already feel like I knew that Trump was willing to destroy the entire government in order to stay in power. But this really kind of proves it in stark detail. And you have to wonder, why are Republicans continuing to defend this man, to trumpet his cause, to defend the big lie, and to do his bidding? Who are the Republican congressmen that Trump was talking about that were going to help him steal this election and conduct a coup against this nation? Who are they? They should be named as well, and we should understand who they are too. So, like just the level of deceit and corruption this man was willing to go to. Again, it's not new information, it's not breaking information, but it is now, provable information.
Yeah, Glenn, I want to underscore some of the language there. Leave the rest to me. What does that suggest to you?
It suggests that for the first time, perhaps, prosecutors will have direct evidence of Donald Trump's corrupt intent, his criminal state of mind, his guilty mens rea. This, Alicia, is the holy grail for prosecutors. When you get direct evidence, and direct evidence is simply words out of the mouth of a defendant, that he was told by his own Department of Justice officials that the election was not fraudulent, it was not corrupt, and he communicated back to them, doesn't matter, I don't care. Just say it was, leave the rest to me and to my allies in Congress. This really does provide a new level of incriminating information, and it goes right to the heart of what is sometimes the most difficult element to prove: corrupt intent. The prosecution, the Department of Justice, now has the corrupt intent to go together with the guilty act. And one question I would ask is, why did people like Jeffrey Rosen and Richard Donoghue cover this up? Why didn't they come forward with it? Because their cover-up of this allowed January 6th to happen. These are some of the questions that I think we're going to have to get answers to moving forward.
Glenn, in another part of the exchange, Trump falsely claims that the elections in Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, and Michigan were all corrupted. He accuses the DOJ of failing to respond to legitimate complaints and reports of crimes. And truly unbelievably, to back all of that up, he tells them that, quote, you guys may not be following the internet the way I do, the internet. Glenn, what would happen if the DOJ made decisions based on internet rumors rather than evidence?
Well, they wouldn't win a lot of cases because what we see on the internet rarely translates to admissible evidence in a court of law. And this shows, this is deflection by Donald Trump, because when he's confronted with the evidence out of the mouths of his own Department of Justice officials, people who he put in place, he chooses to disregard it and say, well, the internet or maybe the tabloids, or I heard somebody say somewhere. This is a very thinly, a very thin veneer of plausibility that Donald Trump is reaching for. But I'll tell you, I really can't overestimate the importance of the ability of prosecutors to now prove Donald Trump's corrupt intent. So when he stood up on January 6th and said, stop the steal, we can prove with the testimony of Jeff Rosen that he knew it wasn't a steal.
I mean, Elie, what is interesting to me is that here you have DOJ officials saying no, but if Trump were to get a do-over, what would stop him from installing a bunch of lackeys who would allow this type of behavior?
Well, it kind of goes back to Glen's point. What would stop him right now would be Merrick Garland and the current Justice Department having the will to prosecute him for his bad actions, right? We now have the proof. Glen laid it out. We now have the proof. We now have the case in writing to make against Donald Trump. What we don't know that we have is the will of the current DOJ to do that work. If they don't have the will, if they shrink from their responsibilities, if they run away from justice, then what is going to happen is that Trump or DeSantis or Hawley, whatever, some Trump-ish person will get back in charge and install other people in the Department of Justice who they know for sure will do their bidding should this issue the wheel come around, and should they have to declare an election corrupt in the future. They know what they'll be hiring for. They can go on Indeed.com and be like, I need corrupt people to run the Justice Department. That's what's going to happen next time if Garland doesn't do the right thing this time.
Glen, you listen to the language and it all has echoes of what happened with Ukraine.
Exactly. I thought the same thing. What did he say to President Zelensky? I don't care in substance. I don't care whether Biden and his son did anything wrong. What I need you to do is step to the microphone and announce an investigation so I can then take political advantage of the fact that you announced a bogus investigation. This is more of the same. And like Elie said, when will the Department of Justice step up and do what the American people deserve? Hold a former president who committed crimes accountable.
Elie, I want to bring in another major story from today. The Justice Department concluded that the Treasury Department must turn over former President Donald Trump's tax returns to a congressional committee that has been seeking them for the past 2 years. That said, the government agreed to give Trump's lawyers 72 hours notice before turning over any returns to give him time to try to prevent the disclosure. Elie, is this going to mark the end of Trump's long-fought battle to keep those returns secret?
Maybe, but I'm
the sigh says it all, Elie. The sigh says it all.
It's been 2 years, and he's never had a legal case. He has never had a good, colorable legal reason to prevent the House Ways and Means Committee from seeing his tax returns. That has never been on the table. The entire tactic has been delay, 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 and obfuscate. So now, 2 years later, when he's already out of power, now we're finally going to get the tax returns to the House Ways and Means. Maybe after he does some other legal shenanigans and tries to get it kicked up to the Supreme Court, which will take another year to decide this. It's just underwhelming, and it shows again just the power of Trump's actual legal strategy, which was to ignore the law and dare somebody to call him out on it. And so I again come back to the current DOJ. If you do not prosecute him for what you have him for, if you do not fulfill your responsibility now, then it's not just that he's going to get away with it. It's that every single person who holds that office knows the playbook to avoid the law, and it's just the delay until people forget about it.
Glen, do you agree with that assessment?
I do agree. I agree with Elie that he never had a legal leg to stand on, but the reason it was delayed for so long, when the law says if the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee makes a request for somebody's tax returns, they shall be turned over. What he had going for him, Donald Trump, was Bill Barr, was Steve Mnuchin and others in his executive branch who were willing to ignore or violate the law. But I'm with Elie. He's now come to the end of the road, and Congress will get his tax returns.
Okay, so Glenn, tell me then, what would you be looking for in those returns?
I want to look for foreign influence. I want to look for criminal tax evasion. Listen, the New York District Attorney has been out front on this issue. Cy Vance went to the Supreme Court twice to get Donald Trump's tax returns and financial records from his accounting firm, Mazars, and he's got them now. DOJ is playing catch up on the criminal tax fraud front, and I have a feeling if the New York indictment, which charges Alan Weisselberg with grand larceny for stealing taxpayer money, it charges the Trump Organization with grand larceny for stealing taxpayer money. I am betting Donald Trump has got some really interesting information in his tax returns.
Elie, what are you betting is in there? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm also looking for pump and dump, right? Like it's the Michael Cohen scheme, right, that he talked about, where Trump inflates his real estate assets when it comes time to get a loan and deflates them when it comes time to pay taxes. That is something that Michael Cohen has already testified to them doing, and that's what I want out of these tax returns, because that to me is the most serious and the most prosecutable crime.
Glenn,
tax crime.
Glenn,
among the other crimes.
Looking at both of these stories that we have talked about coming out of DOJ, I think the real appetite here, of course, is for some accountability. Where do you see the greatest promise of a path to accountability for this administration?
So most importantly, Donald Trump is a federal problem. He violated federal laws. In a very real sense, the American people are the victims of Donald Trump's crimes. And a federal problem cries out for a federal solution. That looks like a federal indictment. That being said, will New York potentially be the first one to indict him as they move through the Trump Organization prosecution? Might the state of Georgia be the first one to indict him because they've got the goods on a recorded phone call where he says, I need somebody to find me 11,780 votes that fell off the back of a truck somewhere so I can be declared wrongfully the winner of the Georgia election. You know, the state investigations are important and they must be conducted, but we need him to be held accountable for violating the laws of the United States as president of the United States.
Elie, so many moving pieces. Where are you keeping your eye?
Same as Glenn, we need federal prosecution. Garland has to step up to the plate, but I completely agree. The funny thing about this conversation that we're talking about today with the DOJ, he's already on record of doing it in Georgia. And the Georgia case for attempted election fraud is, to me, the most straightforward, like, do not pass go directly to jail offense that we have on the table right now.
All right, Elie MYSTAL, Glenn Kirschner, thank you both so much.